gonna stop being lazy. Yeah. And I became creative. And I learned how to create it. And now that pride's for me. So come see. Oh, come here.
Welcome to a QuickSilver reaction. I am your host, Sterlington, with my co-host Cam and the gang. How you guys doing today? We were reacting to the Falcons, uh, the first round of the NFL draft, primarily focusing on the Falcons. I have to say that because let's just get into this shit. So the Falcons had two picks in the first round, as it turns out. Something that I was not expecting. Cam wasn't expecting. I am at least 99% sure 99% of the people watching this or not watching this was not expecting that. The Falcons trade back into the first round. Uh it totally is stealing the headlines away from their original first round pick. So before I start getting anything, Cam, first off, how you doing, my boy?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. It's been a good Thursday.
Uh,
I It's the start of my weekend. I got tomorrow off, so I've been looking forward to this evening. So me and the gang were looking forward to this evening, but it turns out some of the gang got traded away.
Yo, look, and that's a great segue for me into the next question was about your feelings about this because, um, look, the Falcons were real low on draft capital this year, and they definitely let us know. I personally believe they let us know a few things. So for anybody watching before the draft happened, I'm watching the draft, and I said it's the draft. I know the Falcons picking. I gotta get something to drink. I don't want nothing heavy, so I just got some Trulies. This is a little plug for Truly, free advertisement for them. It's a seltzer, a hard seltzer. If you're interested, they got some pretty decent flavors. This most recent one is from the Pool Party limited release. Four flavors are good. But anywho, long story short, I knew dealing with the Falcons, we was gonna have to crack open some beverage tonight, right? So the 15th pick came around, and the Falcons had that pick, and they had their choice of edge rusher outside of Abdul Carter. So last year they had the first chance to select an edge rusher in the first round. This year we have the second chance to select an edge rusher in the first round. And by chance, I don't mean draft slot. I mean, how many edges were still on the board at the time the Falcons picking, right? Last year we went with Michael Penix Jr. I know that caught a lot of people off guard. This year, Jalen Walker was available at our pick, and we took him. I know that caught people off guard just from the sense that a lot of mocks were mocking him to Carolina. I wasn't sure about that, but before we get into all that, I just want to let you guys know if you've been keeping up with the content, we didn't do a draft preview episode. We specifically wanted to avoid that because we wanted to avoid being in that place where you pick, you start getting yourself mentally and emotionally attached to players and positions that you think the Falcons are going to pick, and then they don't pick them, and then you have that immediate knee-jerk reaction. Me and Cam were at a bar when we watched the draft last year, having to us, right? When we watched the first round, I talked about it ad nauseum. We wanted I loved Michael Penix Jr. all college season. I wanted him to be a Falcon all college season. We signed Kirk Cousins, and then I was completely off of the thought of that. And then we drafted a guy that I wanted the Falcons to draft all season. I feel upset about it because I had started attaching myself emotionally to Dallas turn the lights out to a Jared Verse. Me, you know, or hell, even if we would have took a receiver, which I wasn't necessarily on board with, but I was expecting, right? I think you agree with that, right, Cam? You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were, yeah. So that's what we were expecting, and then they took a quarterback. They took somebody we weren't expecting. So our immediate knee jerk reaction is based around the idea of having an expectation for a certain player and not getting that. And then once we calm down, it's like, all right, maybe it's not as bad as we acting like it is. It's just we weren't expecting that. So we avoided that this year. And the Falcons knew, and they still surprised us anyway.
Hey man, they always find a way. They
All right,
always find
right.
a way.
They always find a way. So, before we get into that part, let's go ahead and just talk about it in the order that it came. So, when the 15th pick came up, and you saw that we basically had a full stock of edge players available, or just whoever was available. What was going through your mind, Cam? Who did you think we were going to draft? Um, and when we drafted Jalen Walker, what was your feelings about that?
Truth be told, I thought there were two options that would happen before him. I thought maybe Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. I thought maybe Mike Green from Marshall, albeit he did have a couple of sexual assault cases, and I guess the jury still I don't know. So we still want to hear a little bit more information. So we do have some character concerns regarding him. But those were my two. If I had to hedge my bets, that's who I would have hedged my bets on. But then we decided to go Jalen Walker, and I've seen the tape. Hey, we live in Atlanta, so we see Georgia games all the time. He definitely popped out on tape. Solid player. Some of them I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed watching some of his highlight reels. Um, Great physical attributes. He's a bit of a tweener, like more like linebacker slash edge rusher. So I really want to see which direction we kind of take with him. Like you don't really want somebody who's going to be a jack of all trades guy, even though that can be good. You want somebody who specializes, somebody who can like really have a unique skill set that you can really capitalize on. So I'm hoping that we can take the next step with him. I'm hoping Jeff Ulbrich, Raheem, our defensive line coach, or if our linebackers coach can really utilize his talents and make the most of him. So I do like the pick. Just going in order, like at 15, we got Jalen Carter. Love it. How about you,
Uh,
man?
all right, awesome. I'm glad you feel that way. So, with the Jalen Carter pick, I was surprised he was available then. Not because the Panthers didn't pick him. I just thought somebody between from the Panthers pick to before our pick would have been interested in taking Jalen Walker because he was falling, right? Um, so with Jalen Walker, you know, I for your first overall pass rusher, I would prefer a specialist, somebody who's a career rusher, who has a body of work that shows that they know how to play the edge position. Somebody who has a really ideally you would like to get a Mike Green without character concerns who played at a big school. That's the ideal thing. That's basically what Abdul Carter gives most people, but. Um, you know, with Jalen Walker. So I didn't watch all of the Georgia's games last year, but I did watch their Texas game live, right? I was watching that game right before I was getting ready to go to a birthday party. I put it on the laptop and I watched it. And I just kept saying, yo, number 11 keeps popping. Right, number 11 is sticking out. Jalen Walker is sticking out. He was giving Kelvin Banks serious problems, right? Like he wasn't even always getting a sack, but he was showing that as a pass rusher, he could beat top tier competition in Kelvin Banks. Now he's a guy who's not a specialist. He's a jack of all trades, master of none, right? So we look at that and you know as much as I would like that, sometimes I do have to admit that guys that bring position versatility, um, you know, that's a plus. when you think about our current middle linebacker, Caden Ellis, that's a guy who was a defensive end in college, who became an off-ball linebacker in the NFL, and despite being an off-ball linebacker, as a blitzer, he's extremely effective. Excuse me, one of the top producers on our defense in terms of sacks as a blitzer, right? Now I don't know what our plan is for Jalen Walker. Maybe we're gonna want him to be an edge. Maybe we're gonna split his duties between edge and off-ball linebacker. I don't know. But what I will say is, I think given where he was mocked, typically before this, most people would think that that was a good pick. That was a good value. I think it was a good pick. I'm happy with it. Um, I was definitely interested to see if we were going to bypass, this guy's, bypass Mike Green's other issues to bring him in instead, because he was a guy who was, highly touted, a guy who a lot of people were picking to the Falcons. But now we're seeing that Mike Green's not even going to get drafted in the first round. So that did, I guess him being from a small school and him having two allegations against him did in fact be a bigger issue than we thought. And that's a big reason why we didn't want to get into all of that before the draft, because I'm sure most of you as Falcons fans had definitely started getting attached to the idea of Mike Green being a Falcon. And then our pick comes up, and Mike Green is right there for the picking, and we don't pick him. And then, you end up in the place of being disappointed with who we picked, regardless of whether or not he was a good player, right? So with Jalen Walker, he showed that he could give you some pass rush production at a high level against good competition. So we'll see how that goes. Now he is a little on the shorter side, a little on the leaner side. But he's not being asked to be a 4-3 defensive end. He's not being asked to be a guy who's at the line of scrimmage and run support, a guy who is going to be, in the 3-point stance. We're going to have him as an outside linebacker in our scheme, and I think that's where he should be in the NFL. And we do have Nate Ollie as a defensive line coach here. We'll see how that works out. Maybe we can help him improve his pass rush, and if so, I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great pick. So I'm right there with you. I'm not gonna do grades. I mean, maybe we'll do grades, but personally, I've firmly been of the belief that you can't really grade a player until like his third year in the NFL. So I don't know. We'll see. Um, but to the biggest news, right? So very surprisingly, the Falcons trade back into the first round with the St. Louis Rams, and in the process of acquiring their first round pick, we also acquired their third round pick. And we give up our second rounder this year and our first rounder next year to draft James Pierce Jr. from University of Tennessee, right? Now I'm just going to set a little table, and then I want you to take over, Cam. So, I know a lot of people, we us included, because I'm still, this is a QuickSilver reaction. This isn't all right, I've gotten a chance to sleep on it. This is right after the draft. I'm still very much in the throes of my emotions. I think you are too, right, Cam?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so I'm just trying to set the table and set some perspective, right? Because I know we saw that first rounder for next year, and we were like, "What the hell are we doing?" Right? The way to look at it is, we get a first rounder this year, and they get a first rounder next year, and we traded our second this year for their third this year to move up. Right now, for me personally, the only way that makes it worth it is if James Pierce Jr. ends up being a better player than whoever is available at the pick that we have next year, which means that basically basically, I think we gotta have a playoff push next year. But before we get into all that, Cam, tell me your feelings about both the trade and the player.
All right. Well, first I'll get into the player, James Pierce Jr., University of Tennessee. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of his tape. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like an expert on like tennis, University of Tennessee football, but from the games I've seen and the little playoff experience they got, like, hey, he jumps off the tape. He's physically, he has all the attributes. He's kind of what we've been looking for. Like, we really wanted Terry to address the problem. Hey, get us an edge. And right, we kind of got like a little off ball linebacker with Jalen Walker. He said, boom, we're going back into the first round. And now we're getting the edge. We're gonna really make the people happy. Y'all want the edge? You got edge. What I didn't want was to leverage the future. What I didn't want was to give up next year's first round pick. That's what I didn't want. Hell, you could have, especially given the fact that the Giants traded for Jackson Dart, the pick before us, and they gave up substantially less. Granted, they already had another first round pick, but even still, though, we didn't have to give up next year's first round pick. Your next year's first, you could have maybe given up a second or a third, or maybe like a package something else. But your first, and we already only have 4 picks this year. So now that
We
leaves.
have 5. We have 5. We had 2 7s.
Okay, all right. Well, we have 5 picks this year. Okay, so all right, what does that leave us with? 2 more picks in the draft this year? We have.
We got 3. We got the Rams' third rounder this year, and then the 2 7s.
Okay.
So probably
No,
2, because they're probably gonna package those 2 7s to move up to the 6.
No, we traded one of the 7th picks away to the Rams.
That's what you saw. I forgot. I saw the 3rd, but I didn't see it. Did we get?
So we gave up.
So we gave up a 7th too.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. The 242nd pick. Yep. We gave up 46 and 242.
That's what I'm like. We got 2 more picks this draft, man. We got way more holes to fill. This is a good team. On paper, we have talent in positions that we need to have talent at. But at the same time, we have a lot of holes to fill. We lost Grady Jarrett. We lost Drew Dowman. Granted, we've been blessed with offensive line health these last few years. What if somebody go down? Who we got in the trenches waiting to come up? Like, come on now. Like, there's another question. Who we got going? Who's going to be DB next to AJ? Who's going to be second in command? And granted, we got some pieces that can fill the void, but do we have an actual guy? We got 2 more picks this year, and then we traded away our first next year. Come on now. Like, I love the pick. I just hate how much we gave up for it. What you think, man?
Oh my God, man! I'm on the I'm on the roller coaster. I'm on the roller coaster, right? So part of that roller coaster is, I think this is so my biggest issue with trading the first for next year, right, is you already starting to rob Peter to pay Paul. So what move is telling me is, all right, so we can go ahead and just cut that Trey Hendrickson bullshit right on out. That shit ain't happening for us this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because the Bengals, right after we selected Jalen Walker, they took Shamar Stewart. So I was a couple picks later, and they took Shamar Stewart, another person who was mocked us. But if you had to pick who Shamar Stewart was closer to, between, well, I guess not closer to, but if I had to pick a body type more so that Shamar Stewart was, I'd say he's more Trey Hendrickson, right? I'm thinking that they definitely trying to draft a guy that can replace him, but they also want to add to their current pass rush. For us, I think about the fact that, we're leveraging assets for the future. to draft a guy in James Pierce Jr. You know, when you trade a first to move up from the second back into the first to get another one, you know, you got to get a guy who you feel really good about, a guy who you feel really solid about. And my issue is, you know, this is a guy who has a lot of character concerns. I say character because uh, if you ask Falcons fans, they'll say Kyle Pitts got character concerns. Oh, he's lazy. He gives up on routes. If that's basically the same thing that they were saying about James Pierce Jr., then that's what you could say about, you know, Kyle Pitts. You know, you're saying these people got character concerns, right? But at the same time, you know, his own coaches were willing to go there with him, despite him having had a productive 2023 and 2024, and did it both in the SEC, right? Another thing that I'm having concerns about with him is he is a lean guy. Now I don't know what to make of that, right? Because you know who's an edge rusher we signed this year? Do you recall that?
I want to say it was shit. Who did we sign? I think about it. It's been a long off season.
Yeah. So the edge rush I'm thinking about is Leonard Floyd.
Oh yeah,
When
you're right. You're
when
right.
I look at James Pierce Jr., I'm looking at Leonard Floyd. I'm looking at a 6'5" tall, wiry guy playing edge. And you know, Leonard Floyd's made a 10-year career built like that, playing edge in the NFL. And I didn't. So long story short, I don't want to say that you know James Pierce Jr. can't, especially if we're going to make him an outside linebacker in our scheme as opposed to, you know, a 4-3 defensive end, right? We letting him play off the line, we letting him line up out wide, we letting him play in positions that best play to his skill set. You know what I'm saying? This guy's had a good 40 time. Um, but he doesn't have a lot of power. And with all of that, I just keep saying to myself, we gave up a first this year for that, a first next year to move up to draft him this year. We moved up 20 spots basically. We gave up, and I'm like, the part where it stops being worth it is I'm like, well, this team ain't made the playoffs in fucking 8 years, Terry. This team hadn't made the playoffs. So that let me know that we're probably picking in the top 20 again next year. At least that's what I would think. Like, I don't want to be negative. You know, that's the silver lining. But if I just go off of what I've seen in recent history, I'm seeing a team that's definitely picking in the top 20, and you just gave up that pick to pick a guy at 26 who has questionable character. I don't want to cast aspersions on him. Questionable character, right? A wiry frame, so he might be a liability in run support. You're not getting a blue chip prospect or anything. By trading assets for next year, you're starting to remove yourself from any other future trades, right? So, like, you know, when you start saying, hey, we traded a first rounder this year to get a guy, then if, you know, we get into a bidding war with somebody over Trey Hendrickson, obviously we weren't going to give up a first for Trey Hendrickson. That was never going to happen. But now you give up a third, or maybe you were willing to go to a second just to outbid everybody. Well, now you give up a second, you out your first and second round to pick for next year before the year even started. You ready to do that for a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 7 years? Is that what you're telling me? You know what I'm saying? And with Kirk, I'm on board with keeping him to a certain degree, but at the same time, you know, I'm hoping that we can get up off of that contract. And when I'm seeing how we handling the shit with Kirk, and I'm seeing how we moving in this draft, you know, I know we joke, but I'm like, yo, is this man Terry a fucking double agent for the Saints or something? Like, not trying to be that guy, but like, goddamn, Terry, like, I'm not feeling like the moves that you make are necessarily always just the smartest moves for the Falcons.
It seems like this move was like it had a hint of desperation to it, almost in the sense that Terry was like, "Yeah, my seat is hot, so I gotta make sure I make a move that either makes or breaks the rest of my time here."
So that's funny you said that. One of the things that I'm getting from it is I remember one of the reports that came out when we were interviewing Bill Belichick was that they said Terry was cocky a little bit, right? And so what I think about when I think about that, and I think I'll just connect my own little theoretical dots, is that Terry like, yeah, we went in all in on the quarterback last year and we found one. Now, and he's ready to mark it after 3 games. Now, because I'm a huge Michael Penix Jr. fan, I'm ready to get. I'm like thirsty to get on the bandwagon. But if I take my emotions out of the situation, that is the stupidest thing in the world to bet it all on a quarterback that's only played 3 games for you. Right? That's fucking stupid, especially for the most
Hey,
important position. But he's gonna say, "Hey, we spent money on the quarterback. We used the first round pick on the quarterback, and we got a quarterback." Now he's saying, "Yeah, I'm just about to mortgage everything, and we about to go in on double edges. We're gonna get 2 edges, and shit, we're gonna be set at edge just like we was at quarterback." That's what he probably thinking. But I'm like, boy, you burning it all down. Like you really acting like you came from Mickey Loomis general manager tree right now. Hey, the Saints ain't been doing hot lately because it turns out at some point you do got to pay the piper, and that's what I'm seeing out of this situation. Now, what I will say is one of the things that I've been thinking about with regards to edge is that I think it's just certain positions that you have to you don't get to be satisfied with having two good ones. You gotta say, hey, if we not 4 deep, we not deep enough, right?
I
Like
agree.
with receiver, right? If you got two good receivers, if one receiver on your team get hurt and you don't have a good receiving core anymore, you don't have a good receiving core, period. Right?
No, that's facts.
If one pass rusher on your team, if the best pass rusher on your team get hurt and you don't have a good pass rush anymore, then you never had a good pass rush. Right? So I see that they're saying, all right, we got Ebiketie, we got Carter, on our edges. When we gonna add Jalen Walker, we're gonna add James Pierce Jr. That's gonna give us 4 good ones at least for this year, and we can build off of that. And they we got Obi. I was about to say Obi Trice. For all the hip hop fans out there, they know who Obi Trice is. That's the wrong Trice. We have Braylon Trice coming in as well. So I mean, they really attacking the edge position the same way that they attacked the quarterback position last year. But I gotta admit, so when it comes to evaluating the draft, you have to look at the draft in its entirety before you start judging it, right? You can't just say, oh, I didn't like the first round pick, so the Falcons draft sucked. You gotta look at the whole draft and look at it in its entirety. But when you look at what we gave up and moved up, it's like, damn, so we got a third and a seventh, and that's it. So all we judging this year is for the Falcons is all right. They got their first, the two first, a third, and a seventh, and that's what we're gonna judge you by. And I'm like, I feel more confident in that if Terry had been hitting on draft picks left and right, but he hadn't. He hadn't, and maybe it's a smart round move because typically in the first round, Terry has hit on picks.
I was just
With
about to say
Pitt.
that. I was just about to bring that up. Terry hit on first round pick, so maybe it might work out.
Maybe that's the real magic sauce. Maybe he just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna move all my picks in the first round. I know how to hit on those." So, maybe that's what's going on here. But I gotta admit, giving up what we gave up distracts from the players we get. So I'm very big on the philosophy that uh with the draft, the main thing that matters is that you get good players, right? I would rather take a player at a position we don't need necessarily, and he's great, than a sorry player at a position we do need. You get what I'm saying? That's how you end up with your Brigade Jerrys and how you end up with your Tad McKinleys and your Vic Beasleys and all of that. You drafted players at positions you needed, but they weren't good. And then, that's also how you end up with your Calvin Ridleys and your Bijan Robinsons. You know what I'm saying? These were guys who, in the years that we drafted them, it was very considerable that we did not need to draft those positions, but those were good players, and they ultimately turned out to be good players. So the main thing about the draft, because it's such a crapshoot, is that you get good players. And I feel like I can't focus on whether or not James Fisk Jr. is a good player or not, because I'm looking at all the other potential good players we could have given up by giving up a first-round pick for that. He basically got to do the lifting for a second-round pick and the first round of next year. Hell, I almost feel like for what we gave up for him, he got to be better than Jalen Walker.
Oh, for what we gave up for him, he has to at least be top 3 for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
You see what I'm saying?
If not win Defensive Rookie of the Year. What we gave up for him, I'm expecting at least like 10 sacks, kind of what we gave up for him. Like that kind of production. Because we leveraged next year's future for this guy. So he's got to be good. But hey, man, I'm gonna stay optimistic. I like that Terry addressed what we need. I'm just a little upset that he gave up a little bit more than what we wanted. And the feeling is kind of similar to last year, where hey, we already got a quarterback, we paid for one, and then you go and draft one. But hey, when you look at how the contract was set up, it kind of all made sense. Like, hey, we paid Kirk for 2 years, and if Kirk played well enough, then he could have been extended 2 more years. If he played well enough, he didn't. He lost his starting job to Michael Penix halfway through the year. Hell, he's struggling to find a starting job now based off the bad tape he put out. So right now, it's kind of looking like it's the right decision. But you made a very valid point. Hey, this is not the first time Terry Fontenot has put all the eggs in on basket on the QB he drafted. We did the same thing with Ritter. We had 4 games of footage with Ritter before we said, hey, he's the guy. We got 3 games of footage with Penix before we said, hey, he's the guy. Now, granted, they look completely different at quarterback. Penix passes the eye test. He has all the physical attributes. The only bad thing I can really say about him is his injury history. Aside from that, I love the kid. I think he can do great things with us. That being said, I'm starting to see some of Terry's tendencies, man. And I like the move, but at the same time, it does feel like, hey, Terry's like, hey, y'all want a contender? I'm gonna do everything I can to give y'all one. And if I'm going this year, hey, I'm not gonna be on the ship when it's on fire. So I'm gonna be good either way.
You know what it's eerily similar to?
What?
you might even get a good laugh at this. So this is eerily similar to the last year of Thomas Dimitrov.
Exactly.
I remember him having to get the ship right. And so with a similar pick, like a mid-round pick, he drafted Chris Lindstrom. And then we traded back into the first round to draft Caleb McGarry because the O-line was shit in the bed and he needed to try to do what he could to fix it.
It kind of worked out.
I mean, it worked out, but he wasn't here when it did.
Yeah,
that shit needed to work out right away. But this time, I'm like, yeah, okay. So we took an edge rusher. We took a D lineman because last time we took 2 O linemen. This time we take a D lineman with a middle round pick, and then we trade back into the first to take another D lineman. And it's like, all right, Terry. The main thing that matters though is if we take the right one. Now, this is where the alignment goes back to getting Silver, right? As much as I know a lot of people were in on Mike Green, we cannot ignore that most of his production was against lower level competition. Also, I have avoided doing too much work as far as scouting. I know a lot of people like to scout and get into the draft. I'm like, what do I look like putting in that kind of time, energy, and effort to scouting players that probably won't be Falcons, right? So obviously, I'm gonna dig back in the tape. I'm gonna watch Mike Green and watch James Pierce Jr. because now they're Falcons. It's official. They are Atlanta Falcons. I want to watch Falcons players. I don't want to put in all this time watching tape for people that's not Falcons, right? But I did because watch Mike Green versus Ohio State because I just can't help myself. I love the goddamn football. I did my best to not open up all the gifts before Christmas, but damn it, I snuck in the closet. I opened up one. All right, and I watched the tape, and I mean he was good. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't like this super dominant, disruptive player that was unblockable the whole game. I think both of the sacks he got when the game was already kind of out of hand. Like Ohio State kind of was already putting that thing on Marshall, and that's when he got his sacks. He didn't, and he does have, look. I'm not saying it is, but you got to be cognizant of the city you live in,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not accusing him of anything. I hate when people immediately condemn people over accusations. That's not fair to the people being accused. Sometimes they are the victims, and maybe that's the case for Mike Green. But to have an incident like that in high school and then follow that up with an incident in college,
It's not a good
it's just
look.
not, it's not a good look. All right, and anybody who tells you that it is a liar. All right. So that's not a good look. And that's a risky proposition to use a top 15 pick on or to trade back into the first round to get. All right. The other thing too with James Pierce Jr. He did have better 2023 tape than 2024 tape. He had limited production in certain games where he could have had more production. But Tennessee was smoking those guys, and they didn't he didn't get a chance to rack up his production against lesser talent, right? Um, I mean, look, the guy's a good player. James Pierce Jr. was a good player. If not for the character concerns, and just so y'all know, until I know exactly what the character concerns are and like I get to see it for myself, I'm gonna always do this. I'm always do this. That's not me being,
Listen quotations.
yeah, yeah. I'm not even necessarily being facetious or anything. I'm just saying, what the fuck does that mean? Like, imagine if people talked about you in your life and they said, yeah, Cam's got character concerns. Like, that's ambiguous as shit. What does that mean? That's an amorphous description.
Yeah, like what do you mean? In regards to what?
You know what I'm saying? So let's not even get into all that. But Mike Green's character concerns are definitely a little more on the dangerous side than are James Pierce Jr.'s character concerns. Now, what I will say is I'm surprised we didn't go Donovan Ezeraku. Um, Similar player, productions there. He didn't do it against the SEC. I'll give you that. But productions there. I'm like, yeah, yeah, why not? But Donovan Ezeraku didn't go in the first, which is funny because that brings me back to something that we discussed earlier. We would say, the Falcons need to go corner now. As time went along, I started to soften my stance on the Falcons taking the corner first round because I assumed that there was going to be a huge run on edges and there wouldn't be edges available like that, like I thought we originally thought in the second round, right? But now we seeing, Mike Green's still available. Donovan Ezeraku's still available. It's like, well, damn. Maybe we could have mixed it up a little, even though I'm glad we didn't. We need pressure. All right. I know we need coverage and all, but look, some got to give. We can't keep selecting non-edge rushers when we keep being and also keep being bottom 2 or 3 in the league in sacks. All right, like that just can't keep happening. We just can't keep being at the bottom of the league in sacks and then not addressing that in draft or free agency. But yeah, his name's available in the second round, and then we give up a first round to trade
Hey,
if we get.
the way I look at it is, hey, we essentially decided, Terry decided, hey, I want my dessert early. I want next year's pick this year.
Today. Yeah. Yeah.
Because hey, maybe, because as you've seen as the draft has progressed, it's a defensive line heavy draft. There's a lot of talent, defensive line and edges. So maybe next year he's thinking, hey, the edge we want next year may not be there next year. So I'm getting him this year. Same way with the whole Michael Penix thing. Like, hey, we're not picking at 8 again. If Michael Penix was in the draft this year, he would have been number 1.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, so like the more I sit on it, the more I can kind of rationalize it. We kind of got to see how the rest of this draft plays out. We kind of got to see how the rest of the free agency plays out. We kind of got to see how this whole Kirk fiasco plays out. Granted, I've already made my decision. I'm cool with Kirk being our backup for the rest of the year. I've come to accept it. I'm cool with it. Hey, we got the best backup in the league, and I'm sticking with it. But hey, right now, QuickSilver reaction, it's raw. We gave up next year's first for James Pierce Jr. Dog, he's got to at the minimum, he's got to have at least have 8 sacks this year, like 8.
Through no fault of his own, really.
And through no fault of his own, just through what we've given up, he's got to be worth the investment.
If he don't do that, then damn, get that guy out of there. Get Terry the fuck out of here. If this dude don't produce year 1 because of what he did to get him. Yeah. I'm like, oh, Terry like pressure. I'm like, all right, then put some pressure on him, Artie. Stop letting him do whatever he want, Artie. He acting like this because he think he ain't getting fired, Artie. You gotta go ahead and know when to hold him and know when to fold him. All right. So
I agree.
But hey, look, there's a QuickSilver reaction. The beautiful part about football at any point in time is that you still gotta play the games. All right. And I'm saying all this shit about Terry Fontenot. We saying all this about Terry Fontenot. We saying all this about James Pierce Jr. But if Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. go out there on the edge and they start raising hell and they turn out to be guys that are totally worth the picks, all that other shit don't matter. All that other stuff about when we pick them and what we gave up to get them will not matter. Hey, speaking of which, we talked about this before we got on stream. What's the name that we traded for and we gave up a lot for this guy? But I guarantee you, the only name you remember from that trade is this guy's name. Who I'm talking about?
The great Julio Jones.
We're talking about the great Julio Jones. Julio Jones, man, we gave up so much to get Julio to give up. We gave up so much for a wide receiver. The Browns didn't turn that franchise around with all them picks we gave them. But we kind of turned ours around.
Julio did. Julio absolutely did.
Just so you know, in case you forgot, we went to a Super Bowl and 2 NFC championships after acquiring Julio Jones. Right? It was totally a pick that was worth what we gave up, even though it's at the time it felt like we gave up way too much.
Couldn't agree more.
So this is one of them things that I understand how you feel, how I feel, how we feel, but we got to let it play out. we gotta let it play out and let us see how it works.
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here, Cam? I know it's a QuickSilver reaction. Damn, I guess the quick reaction is only like 16 minutes shorter than usual.
Hey, I feel like we covered our bases on this.
All right, awesome. Well, look, we're gonna be back here with another one pretty shortly. I mean, not no, we're not gonna do a second round reaction because I got to work tomorrow and we got life. But we're gonna be back with you with a chance to go over the entire draft once the draft has wrapped up. So please be on the lookout for that one. Really enjoyed having you guys here today, tomorrow, whenever you watch this. Like, subscribe, share, please comment, and hit the little bell when you want to know some real niggas uploading. Peace.